It's nice you're still there with us, and it's time to move into the main discussion for today. And our focus is observing the state of infrastructure in Nigeria. And to join us in this discussion, we have a professor from the Federal University of Technology, particularly from the Department of Quantity Surveying, and who is also the Director of Academic Planning, Professor Awudele Oluwaseyalabi. Good morning, Prof. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So let's begin the discussion. The state of infrastructure in Nigeria. Where are we standing exactly? You know, given the fact that there is no perfect system, there is no government that can be 100% up to that measure in terms of performance. So in Nigeria, in all fairness, are we standing tall or standing low?
Thank you very much. Before I will go into answering that question, I will first want to explain what infrastructure is all about. When we talk about infrastructure, especially for a researcher like me and then somebody who's into planning and development of infrastructure, we say that infrastructure is beyond talking about the physical structure, but it's something that I describe as the artery on which the development of any nation and then the well-being of the citizenry actually flow through. Looking at the importance of this infrastructure, I would say if we are to assess the current situation in our country, Nigeria, well, I would say without missing word that our infrastructure is a state of disrepair. They are not in good state. Let me begin to pick them one after the other. When you look at infrastructure like road, looking at infrastructure like hospital, educational sector, look at telecommunication in terms of digital power supply and the like, you will agree with me that the current state, when you look at the report of African Development Bank recently, they argue that for us to be able to meet up with the deficit in infrastructural facility in the country, we need 100 billion annually for a decade to be able to meet. So you will agree with me that we have this decay infrastructure facility in the country. Not only that, if you look at our power generation, the power sector, you will agree with me that we range between 4,000 megawatt to 5,000 megawatt for a population of about 200 million. That is by 2006 population, whatever. About 200 million. If you look at this, you will see that this is just not too sufficient. And that is why we have epileptic power supply and then erratic power supply that then people cannot even work with it. And all these things
are you saying our budget now, the budget composition now is not sufficient enough to drive infrastructural development in this country? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I would say what we have currently that is going into infrastructure is not enough. Well, in the course of our discussion, I think I will mention issue of government alone will not be able to do it, and that is why they have to begin to think about other funding sources, like talking about public-private partnership that is done in some other client. So we have to begin to talk about different other funding sources that can actually put in there. But what we have currently is not sufficient. And that is why we have all these problems. Apart from that, the fact that we are just trying to build new one without thinking of how to maintain the existing one so that they can actually live their expected lifespan. All these things actually communicated into the problem of decay in our infrastructure. So I would say currently things are not, looking rosy. However, I would say there is a little improvement recently. Things like the coastal Lagos, Calabar coastal road. In the area of transportation or highway, we can see that that's an improvement. Not only that, in rail sector too, we have this connectivity between Abuja, Lagos, Lagos, Kaduna, and then Abuja, Kaduna, rail line now. All these things coming up. This is a little development, and we have other private partnership projects coming up in the country. One can say things are actually moving further. Again, if you look at some of these private partnerships in the area of power sector, I think we have recently things like energizing education in Nigeria, whereby government is actually partnering with a private sector to actually finance power generation in some of our institutions, universities, as well as tertiary healthcare sectors.
So speaking of reform in the power sector,
okay,
and even general infrastructural development, because to some extent now, federal government has given the state government the autonomy.
okay,
Probably is still in the making, but
yeah,
definitely it's going to come to start generating power
sure,
and developing their
own
the infrastructural
sure
project. So, do you believe the states are strong enough, sufficient to, they have enough autonomy or resources to drive these infrastructural
Absolutely,
development?
I believe so. You know, we have the three sector, or let me say three level of government: the federal, the state, and the local government. All of them have their own role in infrastructure development. I will say categorically, if the federal government can provide the policy, the framework, and then the financial muscle, because the state still go to the federal level to comment to collect some subvention to actually run the state. Definitely, I believe they have capability to be able to do that. And looking at the different states has their own natural resources that it can actually tap into. We are in our own state here, where we call sunshine state. We can tap into solar and generate our own power. Okay.
But even at that, we have our resources.
Sure.
But how well are we harnessing these resources?
That's the
And
problem.
we know it's beyond the responsibility of the state government. Federal government has to come in. So, are we saying the federal government, are they really encouraging the state or supporting the state to harness their resources in a way of generating revenue that can actually drive infrastructural development in their state?
Well, without actually siding the federal government, I would say they are doing their best and they are equally supporting them. Like you mentioned, and if they actually, the federal government have come up with a policy, and now, before now, it is difficult for any state to say they want to generate their own power. If I'm not too familiar with that particular information that you mentioned, that they have actually given them the opportunity of going to develop their own, generate their own.
Ongoing.
It's ongoing. Okay, it's ongoing.
The
Okay.
National Assembly has
Okay. If that policy is there, like I said, one of the functions of the federal government in the area of infrastructure development is this policy formulation. Let's have a framework that, okay, this is what we need to do over the year, and then have a strategic plan over some, year 10, 15, 20 years. When you look at the population of the country, what should we be doing? For example, in the power, like I was saying the other time, 4,000 to 5,000 megawatts for the entire 200 million citizens. You can imagine that is too poor. Even our university here, FUTA, our energy audit, the need for FUTA alone is more than 2.5 megawatts per day. So what are we talking about? And then we are talking about Ondo State and all these 36 states of the Federation. So we will say that it's not enough. We need to think inward and then try to generate our own.
So how do we think inward now? Where do we look, for that kind of drive?
Okay.
Because you made mention of your university community now.
Exactly.
Okay. So what I'm just thinking, what comes to my mind is that, for instance, you have a department there
Yes.
that deals with energy.
Power. Yes.
Power, yes.
Yes.
So what is your community doing in terms of participation now?
Wow.
To drive energy in a way of supporting the government, and even if it is creating an independent power that can power the university community. What about that?
Thank you very much, sir. You see, you actually touched me somewhere. I don't want to actually talk in that direction before, but because of this question, I will have to say something. Now, if any nation will develop, you need to look at the Afritoa, the university. But if I don't know, you are aware now that also we are on warning strike. It's because of this decay in infrastructure. We keep on telling them, fund your institution. Federal institution, FUTA is a federal institution. If it's funded very well, our president is in the news recently talking to the National Assembly that let this government fund institution and give us the stats whether we are not going to deliver. If we have an infrastructure to be able to carry out research, all these renewable energy sources that we can actually tap into, we have experts in the university that can come up with solutions to this problem. But this university is poorly funded. How do you want them to deliver? Even the little they deliver, there is no way they can upscale it and then change it to commercial and begin to commercialize the whole thing. Are we getting it? So that is the problem we are facing. I want to see the solution is not far from us. We have the human resources to be able to do this. If the government will fund the institution, the research of the institute, of the country. We can actually fund it properly. They will be able to come up, do meaningful research. How do you do a meaningful research when there is no power, when there is no infrastructure, when there is no equipment to carry out research? All these things requires fund. And for them to be able to do, they need fund. But this is not available. So going back to your question, I think the solution, you are correct. We can actually develop human capacity. If we have that from the university, then, like my department now, if you want to develop any infrastructure, you need a quantity surveyor, and then we need to train mind. We need to develop students who will be able to actually go out there and perform as a quantity surveyor. So it's the university that will be able to do. Engineers that will build all this infrastructure, they are there. The university will prepare them and develop and produce them. But if they are not properly funded, what do you expect? They will be doing. I mean, it's going to be an abysmal. I don't know how to put it. That's the situation, sir.
Okay, now you made mention of the fact that the federal government is not looking in that direction of funding your research work.
Exactly.
But how convincing this your agitation for funding research work? How convincing? Because one thing is to have an idea, another is to be able to communicate it effectively.
Yes.
So how convincing is your agitation?
Wow. I think I would say that the union, ASU, has been actually putting this in the news and then try to convince anybody who is ready to listen. For instance, before now, our 2009 ASU and federal government agreement, it's all about funding, revitalization. They went ahead, the government of this country went ahead to look at the need of the university. That was what led to need assessment. And they assessed the need, and they agreed the government should be committing 200 billion yearly for the next 5 years or 6 years. Are you getting it? But what do we see? Successive governments have been judging that they are not doing, and that is why ASU is is protesting. We have been putting this forward, that if you fund your institution, definitely you will be able to compete favorably with our international community. If you look at our product, its evidence is in the news that brains from Nigeria, our product, our students, they are competing and performing wonderfully outside the country. What does it means we have a system that can do well and that can develop good heads. But if they are not properly funded, what do we do? Everything, if you look at it, the need of ASU, you will see that it's about the funding of the system, develop the infrastructure, and then give us a living wage, whereby the professors, the lecturers who are going to do the research will be comfortable, they'll be happy doing what they are doing. If nobody is not motivated, how will you get the best from me? I'm not trying to talk more about the ASU struggle, but let me be frank. Government is not doing well in funding their institution, and that is why they cannot even give us. If you fund the institution, okay, issue of problem of power. Okay, Federal University of Technology of Akure, this is $S billion, naira for you to do this. Deliver. If you fail to deliver, then you can actually charge.
What if the federal government now, government is so overwhelmed with overbearing responsibilities, and it's as if it's not going to come from them. There's so much desire.
Okay.
What are you doing in your capacities as within the academic community to bring, because you made mention of the fact that infrastructural development also have to pay way for partnership to drive it successfully. Exactly. So what are you doing in the way of attracting probably all these foundations that are truly interested in investing in infrastructural development of the university system?
I would say as an academy, we are doing our efforts in this direction, because it's evident we know that. Let me just first of all say that I think the problem of the government is not because they are overwhelmed. Okay. Rather, I would say misplaced of priority. Okay. What they feel this is their own priority is different. I don't want to be going into some of the things we see government doing. What you feel is a priority. I think if you set your priority properly and you know that the solution to all this power sector, all this decay in infrastructure, in health sector, in educational sector, is because of fund. Okay, if you fund that properly, and you know that you can get the solution to those problems from the university, definitely you fund it better. But what they do is they prefer to go outside there, bring expatriates. It's just appalling. And then capital flight, all those things is happening. We are doing our best, like I said earlier on, because by the grace of God, we are looking today now. You see alumni coming to the institution to support. If in terms of research grant, the little window that is available, for example, if we're taking the advantage, like church fund is doing something. Yearly we have NRF. The little, I won't tell you more than what do you want. What type of research you want to do with 2 million, 3 million, all those stuff. Well, we are competing. I think it's in the record. It is in the news. FUTA, out of more than 100 and something research grant that was given, FUTA got more than 17 of the like. Only FUTA. But we consider we are ready if the avenue is there. And we're looking at private sector too to come and actually partner. That is why in FUTA, some departments in our institution over there partner with Chevron, Shell to actually develop. We have Shell professor that has a chair in Shell that we can attract fund and then do research, and then the product of this research can be useful in the for the society. So I think we are doing our best, but I tell you, it's not sufficient. The owner of the university should actually fund their university so that they can actually perform and develop.
Okay, let's leave university.
Okay, sir. So
exactly. The concept of infrastructural development.
Yes, sir.
Is not entirely the responsibility of the government. Now, you made mention of partnership.
Yes.
And if inside the case of the ongoing Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, federal government has successfully obtained a syndicated loan.
Yeah.
Resulting in, I think it's about $748 million.
Yeah.
To just complete the first phase. Now, if completed, how will they be able to? Does that suggest that it is good for government to engage in loans, in funding, or executing infrastructural projects? What is the implication?
Thank you very much. I think the implication of that, Unison sometimes ago actually argue that issue of PPP is just a means to an end. That is what I mean by PPP is public-private partnership. It's just a means to an end. It's not an end on its own. I actually have published so many papers in the area of PPP, and I do argue that it's not sufficient to go into go into development of every infrastructure using PPP system, because most of the time this PPP system, this model is useful for economic projects, and the government need to get it right. It's not all project that you apply PPP. Of course, some they will be you convert it to economic project because they will be paying toll.
Generate revenue. So would that be sufficient to offset the loan?
Of course, if they do a good feasibility study ab initio, it should be able to pay back. There is concession period, maybe for 30 years, 35 years. The thing will pay over the years, and then little they're going to get. If people will be transparent and be sincere, accountability, everything is possible. The countries, nations are doing that, and it's working. Are you getting it? And I know there are other avenues, there are others. What God has blessed this country with is enough to be able to do all these things, to develop and to make us, one of the leading nations in the community of nation. So I don't think it's not bad. The answer to my question is that the idea is not bad. If there will be there will be accountability and transparency in the running and everything will be fine.
Okay, now let's talk about this concept of failure on the part of government. One thing is they invest so much in bringing up projects, infrastructural projects. Another thing is maintenance.
Sure.
What do you think is responsible for this culture that is drawing us back, the maintenance culture?
Thank you very much. I will say we have, in this country, we have zero maintenance culture.
And why is it like
that? Thank you very much. Because there's no policy framework, ab initio, from the onset. At the planning and the design phase of any infrastructure, we need to actually, in fact, in the budget, we budget money for the maintenance of any infrastructure. In this country, what we just know how to do is to build new one. We don't care.
Just to probably to take the glory.
To take the glory.
And it becomes a problem for the.
That's another problem with the country. That's another problem with the country. There's no continuity. I talk about issue of a plan, strategic plan,
long-term
over the
plan,
long-term plan that will transit any government. If the PDP or APC is there today, another government, the moment we have that blueprint plan, everybody will key into it. But what do we see? This government is doing this today. The next one is not interested in that one. We want to do another thing. We build new. Just like you said, to get glory. During my own regime, this is what we build. This is what I build. But we don't think of maintenance. And when there is this common saying that something you don't maintain, you lose it. If you don't maintain any infrastructure that you build, over the year there will be decay, and the thing will dilapidate, and it won't be able to perform the function required. So what the problem we have is there is no policy framework on ground, and then they don't actually put the maintenance something. Maintenance is more than the normal repair. But there should be both preventive and then protective maintenance that will go along over the year lifespan. Each and every facility has their own lifespan. So if we plan it, is it every 5 years, every 2 years that we are going to be doing this maintenance? Not that when it's now dilapidated that they will now want to begin to say we want, and there's no fund. Just add federal processor. You don't see what is important is how much is the project going to cost. The initial construction cost 50 billion. Okay, that is what they make available. They don't plan for the maintenance. Maybe 20 million, 30 billion should be set aside for maintenance every year. They will plan it because it's possible it's doable. But people don't think about it, and they're not ready to do it.
This brings us to this question now.
Yes, sir.
How can we enhance citizens and media as well to mount pressure on government in a way of delivering optimal performance in infrastructural development? What can they do, to empower their voice in a way of putting them accountable to ensure that they deliver?
Advocacy. Well, I think just like I don't know how to handle that question properly, but definitely that is some things that our union, like ASU, is doing now. We have a union, and because we have this information. One, knowledge is power. Okay. First, we need to educate our people, let them develop. That is what like ASU is doing. We sensitize our people.
And that's also, this comes to mind. Is it, in terms of the maintenance now, is it singularly the responsibility of the government? What about the first line of beneficiary, the citizen? Are they not? Does that mean they don't have roles to play?
We have roles to play.
In what way?
We have role to play in maintaining, but everything boils down
because you made mention of protective and
preventive. Yes, maintenance.
So who is to prevent? Who is to protect?
By the grace of God, if we have that budget, plan ab initio. In fact, it starts with the issue of design. The way you will design a building, at the design stage, if you have actually planned issue of maintenance into it, we have a situation where, sometimes, somewhere that I actually consult with, for them, somewhere whereby when they are building that style reaper, they don't think about it. We are going to get to the penthouse in case they want to maintain it. So it's after the edifice has been built. Now, during the time they want to maintain, they have to now be looking for another, crane to be able to get to that level. You can imagine. So this is going to be too much. I will agree with you perfectly that the people, the end users, they equally have their own role to play. But don't forget, it's about funding. If you build without considering that we are going to maintain, we are going to paint periodically, we are going to be cleaning the louver periodically, we are going to be servicing the firefighting equipment in the thing. Look at our extinguisher. Extinguisher do expire. So if there is no money set aside ab initio, the fire extinguisher in this building, we need to be refilling them every year and allow that money to be there. How do you maintain? The whole thing will crumble. Are you getting it? So it's still more down to issue of funding. That at the beginning in the budget we make provision, and people will not. Our people, due to corruption and whatever, they will not eat it up and then forget and clean up. But the money will be there when there is need for maintaining it. They will be able to do. I know we can do it and we can get there.
Maybe the missing link now,
yes,
in terms of who is maintaining it, is
yes,
the fact that who should be, by standard procedure,
yeah,
who should be involved with in the maintenance? Is it the contractor or the state agency?
The state agency, they will now engage the contractor. If or depending on the nature of the way, because for example, like the issue.
Because we've seen some road projects in
okay,
across the country
exactly.
now. We've discovered that the contractor will just execute, and the responsibility is now left for the ministry or the to be issued. Should it be like that? Is it the standard procedure?
No, well, I would say no, and I would say yes. Why? Depending on the nature of the condition, the procurement, the procurement system. There are so many procurement methods. For example, just like you mentioned, if we go into PPP arrangement, there are a model whereby you develop, at least you build, and then you run it. During the running, you maintain and transfer to the public, the public sector. Are you getting me? If that is the model, the so-called contractor knows that he has a responsibility, and that is why I mentioned issue of policy framework. Let there be policy framework on the issue of maintenance. If we have given him the contract to develop, to build the road and then maintaining it for us, we can actually challenge. We have because there is nothing like that ab initio. That is why the government have something like FEMA for road maintenance. So when the contractor finish building, because what they paid him is just the cost of constructing the road. Then they paid him, and then after handing over, they wait for a period of time. In building we have what we call defect liability period. That's the period, a window of 6 months. If there is any defect on such a property or infrastructure, the contractor has a responsibility to come and maintain and fix it and put it in good condition. But after the practical completion and everything, everybody he received his what we call it retention fee. Even when you pay in the final retention fee, it's gone. So now the responsibility now come back to the government agency that owns something to begin to maintain it. But like I said, do we even budget? Do we factor maintenance into? It's just recently that some of these I would say funding body government is setting up, like third fund and the like for education sector, and then they are now trying to give little money for maintenance, because for maintenance. Before now, there is nothing about maintenance. What is important is building new one. They don't care about, and you see some of these universities, they are being in system over 50, 40 years. FUTA is over 40 years now. The building that you built over 40 years ago, are you saying you don't need to maintain them? We need to maintain them. Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's talk about urban bias.
Okay.
We discovered that there's this discrepancy in infrastructural development.
Yes.
From the point of view of urbanization to the detriment of the rural areas.
Sure.
And we know that the rural areas are the largest contributors of the local economy of any society.
Absolutely.
So what do we do now? Should it be like that? What can be done to ensure that more attention is given to the rural areas in terms of infrastructural development, power, road, and the rest?
Absolutely. I agree with you. There's need for policy shifts to think about all this rural area. The issue of urbanization, everybody running to urban sector, go to Lagos now, this area is densely populated, and then you go to the rural area, you don't see, because there are no infrastructure. Absolutely. No schools, no hospital, no good road, and the buildings, residential buildings, they are not there. Power is not there. Even in Akure, for example, in the state capital, if we have problem of power, now I don't know, my family, my people, in the rural area, what do you think about? What do you think will happen to them? What we are saying is that government, there should be a shift. Let's develop that area. That will reduce the pressure or the congestion on the urban centers. Yes. And then, if what do I need to come to Akure for? If in my own village I have pipe warm water, water is running, I have electricity, I can connect to internet over there. That is what happened in the developed countries. You see their villages, small, Brosborn, like in UK, you see small villages, and they are everything that you will see at the city center, you have them over there. So why should I have to go there where there will be population, noise population, air population? I would rather stay in my local environment, the rural area, and where they actually do they produce the food that we eat in the urban center. So I think there should be a policy shift, there should be cultural shift towards developing that area if we are going to do better.
Who should be responsible for the cultural, the policy shift?
It's government, federal government at the national level, state government at the state level, and then local government. So,
but the local government now,
yes,
are they truly functioning?
ah,
Because given the fact that the Supreme Court has ruled that
yeah,
they should be given
autonomy.
and that means they should have access to their resources
Sure.
in developing their local government.
Exactly.
So what do we do in this case? If that is not, and it's as if it's not happening, if I may be mistaken, maybe you want to correct me,
Well,
then what do we do in this case?
well, that's a million question, which is difficult to say. It's evident. If the court have said, okay, give them their autonomy, let them control. You know, I mentioned these three-tier government, federal, state, and the local. They have roles to play independently in infrastructure development. So whatever allocation given to them, give to them, let them use it to develop their local environment. But I don't know whether it's not happening or it's not happening. Well, I won't be able to say categorically. Some states will say it's happening in our state. Some states will say it's not happening. But whatever the case may be, I think that's the best way to go. Let there be this independent autonomy for each and every tier of the government. When the federal government gives their whatever, the state is entitled to, and local government, let the state government give them what is entitled to them, so that they can actually develop their area, because they know what their needs are, and they will be able to actually handle it and develop appropriately.
Look, this issue of division of responsibility between federal government and state government in terms of infrastructural development, should we say is responsible for the deficiency we are experiencing in infrastructure in this country?
I don't think it should be.
Because some will say this is federal government rule, this is state government rule, and at some point the federal government fail to intervene. It will just be like that, and the state government will dare not, without permission, dare not venture into that kind of a thing. So does that explain why this level of deficiency is going on?
Well, I don't want to be going into what I call, I would say, the way the country is governed or administered, all these, but we are running federal system of government. Okay. And then we have federal government, we have state. I don't think that should be, because each and every one of them has its own role and responsibility. Like I said, it's the responsibility of the federal government to give the policy framework, the direction, the guideline, provide the fund in terms of budgeting to do all these things. And they have ministries who are, that's why you have national airport, national airway, national, that is federal. And the federal ministry in all the states are there to actually do look at the road, facility, and everything. The state has their own to do. It's clearly cut out. If anybody is not doing his own, that does not say the system is faulty, but it's because the person that is, it has to do with interest now. If I have the love of my state, my people in my state at heart, definitely I will ensure that all the roads in my place is built. They have good facility, they have good education. It's possible, it's doable. We see what some people are doing. I don't want to be mentioning state or whatever. You see what is happening. In this our state, we have seen it. We have governor builds 2 schools, beautiful school, mother and child mega. I'm not really proclaiming any something. But this has been done. It's possible. That does not say that it will now amount to this inefficiency that we are seeing. That does not amount to inefficiency. Of course, there is overlap at times, some overlap, and then just like you mentioned, federal road and the state government will now say it's federal road. I cannot intervene. Of course, I think that at a point in time, government allows the state to intervene when they notice
with the hope of
reimbursement at least. So if the state now gets the federal government to think about it,
because we should not be thinking about reimbursement, we should be thinking about the people getting the dividends of the money.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, now let's look at our budget.
Yes, sir.
2025 budget. If you look at the composition, infrastructural development is just about 12.7%, while that of education is 8%. What does that? What's the implication of that?
That's another thing. It's there. UNESCO mentioned what should be done to education sector. Between 23 to 26% of your budget, national budget, should go to education, because they know that.
Does that mean education is not a priority in this country?
That is it. I mentioned it. It's not because we don't have the money, but our priority is not. towards education.
Misplaced
The bedrock that will develop the nation, the woman capital, the one that will develop even the infrastructure. I've just mentioned it. If the engineer that will build it, that is why, misplaced of priority, they prefer to go out and bring a Lebanese, a Chinese to come and build, where we have expert engineers in the university, and they want to kill the university so that we won't have anybody to show for it. You know, I don't know whether you are getting the logic. It's misplaced of priority, 6 to 8%. Whereas you're supposed to be spending. South Africa over there is spending more than 23% of their annual budget to education. God conceive our people now running to South Africa, running to Ghana, imagine. And we call ourselves Nigeria giant of Africa, giant for nothing. So what I'm saying is that education should be given priority. 26 minimum, UNESCO minimum. If they cannot be above that, let's do it. Let's give that 26. Let's see. Our president, ASU president said, tell this government to fund education and challenge us whether we are not going to deliver. Even with this hard time, with this problem, people are still doing. You go to the ranking, you see Nigerian professors being in the first two researcher in the world. These are that data that speak volume about, and our people going outside there, they are doing exploits. I know of my students who are in the UK, America, and Canada that are doing fine. But misplaced of parity, 8%, and instead of 20%, between 26. So what are we doing?
So it has been a very interesting conversation with Professor Alabi Awodele from the Federal University of Technology. He's also the Director of Academic Planning. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, sir.
It's a pleasure to
have you.
Sir.
Yes,
moving on, now we want to take you into the world of plastic. You know, what plastic has come to stay and staying it must. We're through human civilization and existence. There are certain inventions that have characterized who we are in terms of civilization, and one of such is plastic. So we want to delve into the world of plastic to see, plastic solving problems. It was originally created to solve problems at some point in the area of manufacturing, medicine, even fashion. But plastic turned out to be waste, now threatening our environment and ecosystem. For it not to continue to pose that problem, inventors and innovators have come up with technologies that now recycles waste plastic into things that are useful, that can even generate money. I want us to look at this content. It's actually a mini documentary. The idea is to educate you, enlighten you as to what is happening in the world of plastic. Let's watch this. We'll be right back after this time.